We will discuss today how to facilitate the dialogue among the project operators of the energy efficiency sectors, and we will give examples and best models that work during the run of this project that help us encourage investments in the energy efficiency initiatives. I'm gonna quickly run through the agenda for today. First, we are going to have Marco Baker from P&O Consultants, which are the project coordinators for BuildInterest, explain to us a bit about the depth of the project, along with the three financial platforms developed and the results that they have achieved. Then we will have a presentation by Serena Vaioli from Aster, who is one of our BuildInterest financing platforms based in Italy. She will give concrete experiences about attracting the stakeholders' engagement, and we'll highlight some of the tools that the Italian financing platform has developed. We will then have a short question and answer session during which every attendee would be able to ask their questions. I would ask you to use the question and answer button that you can see on your menu to address any question to the host and panelists during the presentations. We will then, in the question and answer session, run through those questions, and if there's any further problems to discuss, participants can raise their hand to be included and speak to the host and panelists. We would now like to give the word to Marco Baker from P&O Consultants, who will share some of the experiences of BuildInterest. Marco, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, so if you could join.
I'll do that. Hi, everybody. Good morning, everybody. My name is Marco Bakker. I'm from P&O Consultants. And well, as Eva already said, today I'd like to kick off the webinar with saying a few words about BuildInterest, the project in which we've set up 3 financing platforms in 3 different countries. And before I talk about the platforms, I would like to start to say a few words, yeah, there you go, on the background of the project. Which is basically the fact that building efficiency is really one of the most affordable ways to reduce carbon emissions. And what you see here is a graph by the IPCC, the Panel for Climate Change, that made an inventory of the sectors that the different sectors where investments would lead to carbon reduction. And what you clearly see is that the building sector by far is the sector where the let's say the reduction in carbon per investment is by far the largest, even compared to industry or transport or energy supply. And what you also see is that in this sector the investments are relatively low in cost. The orange bars represent the let's say the relatively low cost investments, and the blue bars are a little bit more expensive. So clearly, the building sector is really a big opportunity for investment and a big opportunity for carbon reduction. However, at this moment, even though there are quite a few initiatives, the pace is really lacking, and we really need an acceleration in order to reach Europe's climate goals. One of the reasons, of course, there are a couple, but one of the reasons that investments aren't really going as fast as they should be going is the fact that well, what I'd like to call the circle of blame, basically where the different stakeholders that are involved in investing in buildings have placed the cause of the problem with another group of stakeholders. Just to give us a simple example, there are quite a few project developers at the moment that are working on quite green and quite energy efficient projects, but really have difficulty finding investments. And at the same time, there are also quite a few investors that are that claim that they have a lot of money available, but just can't seem to find the projects that meet their standards. So apparently something is not going right. Apparently there's some kind of misunderstanding. And of course, again, there are different ways to solve this, but one important one, of course, in a situation like this is to get the different stakeholders, the stakeholders that are part of the problem and part of the solution, together in one room and try to get them to work together towards a common solution. And this can be done by setting up a platform, which is basically a way for different stakeholders to get to work together. And since we'll be talking about platforms quite a bit in this webinar, I'd just like to start with a platform, with a definition, because I think one of the things I've learned in this project that this can mean very different things to different people. So what we mean today, in the next 1.5 hours, when we talk about a platform, it's really a way for different stakeholders to interact and work on a common interest, a common problem, and to understand each other, create trust, and of course, in the end, also to engage in joint action to really work towards a shared solution of the problem. So in our case, the shared problem is the fact that investments in energy efficiency in buildings are going quite slow at the moment and need to be increased. And for this reason, we've set up a project called BuildInterest about 2 years ago, just a little bit over 2 years ago. As P&O consultants from the Netherlands, we took the initiative and we coordinate the project. But I think the real stars in the project are the organizations that have set up and are currently running the 3 different platforms. In the Netherlands, that's Duurzaam Gebouwd. In France, that's BPI, the French National Bank. And in Italy, this is Astar, who you'll be hearing from in the next presentation. And the project was also supported by Europe Unlimited, now called Tech Tour, as Eva is hosting this webinar, for example, and ECN as well, to provide a European dimension to our problem. So the goal of the project is really to reduce uncertainty and increase trust in investments in sustainable energy in buildings. So that's what we want to reach. And how we want to reach it is to establish a dialogue and to establish cooperation between the financial sector and the building sector. So like I said, really trying to get the 2 different sectors together in one room, quite literally in many cases, and work together towards a common solution. So like I said, we've in the project, we've set up 3 platforms in 3 different countries. And since the topic of this webinar is on, well, how do you actually go about to do this? I think this is on a general level, the steps that we took. Of course, it really starts with getting the right people on board. And for this, of course, first you need to know who the right people are. And since our experience is that platforms really only work if you have all the relevant people participating, it's really important to spend some time and spend some thought on identifying all the right people in your particular country or in your particular market. For us, we did a stakeholder analysis in each of our countries. And just as an indication of the things that come out, it's quite a small picture, but I think it shows, it has enough detail to show you what I want to say. This is basically a graph where on one hand, on one axis, you see the expertise of many different stakeholders, and on the other axis, you see their willingness to engage. And they're indicated in different colors to indicate their importance to us and the amount of effort we had to invest in getting those stakeholders on board. For example, in green, all the way in the top right, you see the stakeholders that are quite knowledgeable, are very have a lot of expertise in this area in investing in sustainable energy, but they are already active and quite they're already involved in solutions, so they are highly relevant to us, but we don't necessarily need to spend a lot of effort to get them on board. Whereas, for example, the red group, this is a graph for the Netherlands, and those are mostly financial institutions. This is a group that is highly relevant to our problem. They have a lot of relevant expertise, but at least before we started the platform, they were not quite active in the solution. So this is a group where we invested quite a lot of time to get them on board. And just to give you some feeling about what a stakeholder analysis is for. Of course, if and when you've involved all the right people, the next step is to actually set up a governance structure, which sounds quite formal, but since a platform is really a way for different stakeholders to work together for a longer period of time, in our case, at least 2 years, because the project took 2 years. But in the case of our 3 platforms, quite a bit longer, because each platform will continue after the project. You need to have some form of working together, and this is where the platform governance is for. And again, you'll hear more details about this in the next presentation. Then, of course, if you have everybody in the room and you know how you are going to work together, the next 2 steps are really to get everybody to agree on what specific problem you're going to solve. That they need to share at least a common view on the problem that you're going to solve in the problem in the platform. And preferably, of course, the next phase is that everybody agrees on the direction that you're going to work in with the platform. You agree on the preferred solution. In our case, the emphasis was really to get the platforms one step beyond just getting everybody together. We really wanted to get some results out of the platforms. So we tried to set up the platforms in such a way that they can continue after the project and really work on implementing the solutions that we came up with. And again, you'll hear more about this in the next presentation, but I think it is important for a platform to be more than just, let's say, a way to talk. But well, I'm proud to say that in our platforms, we've really took a step further and worked towards the actual solutions. And just to show you one example of what happens if you get 3 platforms in one project. I already said that the word platform can mean many different things to different people. But it's even a bit more complicated, because if you set up a platform on investments in sustainable energy, and you do this in 3 different countries, then just the word investment already means many different things to different people. Just to give you an example, the Dutch platform has, because of their local situation, really focused on real estate investment. And so the dynamic that they work in is between project developers and real estate investors, whereas the French platform, for example, operated by BPI, really focuses on investments in new technologies for the building sector and energy efficient technologies. But nevertheless, this means that they focus on the dynamic between, for example, venture capital and startup companies, which is completely different and requires quite a different approach. Then, of course, there's also the Italian platform, which I think does a little bit of both, but you'll hear much more about that in the next presentation again. But I just wanted to illustrate, I think the main lesson is that there, even though we try to share in this webinar as much as we can, there really is not one solution on how to set up a platform, even if the topic, investment in sustainable energy, is the same. So it's really, I think, an important lesson that you need an approach that is very specific for your country, your market, your situation. And just before I close and give the floor to Serena, I'd like to introduce you to the 3 platforms that we've set up in the project. In Italy, run by Aster, that is BuildLab. In the Netherlands, that's the Green BuildInterest initiative, run by Duurzaam Gebouwd. And in France, that's the Rocoty platform, run by BPI. And in the project, we've also cooperated with 2 other financing platforms, one in Spain, Invest, and one in Austria, Cefipa. And Also, as I think a last word, I would like to extend the invitation to you all participating today in this webinar, that if you are thinking about setting up a platform that is comparable in scope or maybe even different, and you would like to learn more about the lessons that we've learned in this project in running the 3 platforms, please feel free to contact us, either Tektor or Serena or myself, and we'd be happy to discuss with you further on and everything we've learned so far. So with that, I'd like to close. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'm Marco Bakker, my name's on the top, and I run this project together with my colleague Roel van der Veen. So you can always contact one of us. So thank you very much for your attention so far. And with that, I think I give back the mic to Eva.
Thank you, Marco. I would like to invite Serena from Master, who's going to present the BuildLab platform and their experiences.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so first of all, my name is Serena Maioli, and I'm project manager of Aster, which is the Innovation and Technology Transfer Agency of Emilia-Romagna region. Today, I'm going to present the main features of BuildLab from its very beginning, so from its creation, its launch, until the next steps, until the scenario we are facing. I would really like to focus in particular on what I call boxes, which are the main levels of governance of BuildLab platform. The steering committee, the topic-oriented groups, and the community, focusing in particular on the different tactics we put in place to approach different kind of stakeholders. So everything started in 2015 when Aster decided to participate to BuildInterest project. Aster, as I said, is the Innovation and Technology Transfer Agency of Emilia-Romagna region, which means that is interested in particular in technologies and how they can be transferred from academia to enterprises. But we see that actually the non-technological barriers were much more hindering the investment in energy efficiency and sustainability in buildings. So Aster decided to increase the level of competencies of the whole regional ecosystem dealing with the non-technological barriers. So what we did was at first to try to understand much better the context where we had to work. And in order to do so, we asked the support of NOMISMA, which is the Enterprise for Socioeconomic Studies, that became from that time our main technical advisor for all the paths that we have created until now. So what we did was to collect a first group of stakeholders from demand, supply, finance and policy sectors, asking them at first what are the barriers, both real and perceived, that they are facing when investing in energy efficiency. But with Build Connection, the name of this path, we wanted also to discover what these stakeholders were doing in their daily activities, in their organization to overcome these kind of barriers. So the next step was to find all together as a system the solution that probably would face much better this barrier. So in 2017, we built BuildLab. And this was done with the great commitment of the Emilia-Romagna region, because despite Green Building Invest Initiative and Euroquity, which are the other two financing platforms as explained by Marco, BuildLab has the main characteristic of being a public-led financing platform. That means that the regional public authority is both a target and one of our main promoters. BuildLab had to be a sort of technical advisor, providing both to the market and to the regional authority a set of solutions to face, for example, a better use of public funding by the region, to increase the level of knowledge, integrated knowledge between the different categories of stakeholders involved in sustainability in buildings, and a challenge which was of interest both of the market and the regional authority, to promote bankable, innovative and sustainable projects. So we decided to to try to understand what was the best strategy for the governance of our platform. And we found out that we needed 3 levels of governance. The first one was a strategic one. The steering committee was the technical scientific body that at a higher level was giving us the priorities, the objectives, and giving us the orientation of the platform. This was constituted by a fixed number of stakeholders that we call official members, and 6 local antennas that were called like this because they were changing and they were representing the dynamics happening in the market. The second level was the topic-oriented group. Actually, this one is the level of operation of BuildLab. It is the most interesting level that I will explain later. Finally, the third level is the community level, where we are going to approach widely the networks that BuildLab is increasing day by day. So the main focus right now can be the topic-oriented group, because this was the core of our platform activities. What we did was to try to answer to 3 main questions. The first one was how do we improve the financiability of renovation projects? How do we increase their success rate in the market? We wanted to focus especially on private residential buildings, but we recognize that also the public residential buildings, the social housing, could give us good example on how to work. Second question was, how can we optimize the use of public funding, since we have the region as a main target? The third question was, how do we enhance the overall level of knowledge of the stakeholders? So we decided to use concrete cases as test beds, 3 residential building renovation proposals coming from promoters or developers of renovations. In particular, this was small owners associations, enterprise and professional associations, or the social housing agencies. With these test beds, we wanted to simulate actually what could happen when someone wants to finance their renovation project in the real context, in the real market. And we asked to 5 experts, 1 bank, 1 regional energy agency, 1 national energy agency, the University of Bologna, and the regional authority to be included in this working group, providing institutional, technical, and financial support. Toward the path of, through a path of 5 workshops, we elaborate together tools and guidelines that could be adopted by the region and by the market. So we had different kind of experience in the engagement of our stakeholders. For what concerns the construction stakeholders, our challenge, as I said, was to increase the knowledge of the market operators. And our solution was to match the most experts with the operators that daily are facing problems when proposing renovation projects. So the pilot case promoters submitted their renovation proposals, and the technical experts tried to share their evaluation tools and contributed to integrate their expertise, elaborating common tools. What we did with financial stakeholders was a little bit different, because we faced a problem with them. We faced their prudence, their mistrust. And what we did was to engage them separately, interview them, involving in focus groups, but one by one, and show them that we had the regional commitment. We selected the most committed ones, and we asked them to be official members of our governance levels. So the first one was the steering committee, and the second one, the topic-oriented group. Within these boxes, we elaborated with them tools. We asked them what were their financial parameters they used to evaluate renovation projects. And with these key parameters, key bankability criteria, we proposed guidelines. The second phase was to consult other financial stakeholders, so enlarge our audience of financial stakeholders and make them curious about what we did. In this way, we grew the interest of financial stakeholders to our activities, enabling the expansion of our network. So as BuildLab, we elaborated a set of tools. Of course, this is not the place to discuss in detail what are these tools, but what I can say to you is that all of them are increasing the level of cooperation between the stakeholders. Because on one side, we created the frameworks that enable the cooperation between them. For example, subscribing agreements with high-level stakeholders like Enea, the National Energy Agency in Italy, or we promoted the constitution of intersector groups within the regional authority, because we wanted to have a constant referee within the Emilia-Romagna region when acting within our platform. Because if the region has to be our main target, it has to be also a constant referee. And we needed cross-collaboration between the departments that in the Emilia-Romagna region were working on urban regeneration, that are very different and not always collaborating each other. Finally, we created the atmosphere to collaborate with other European projects, having in mind that we were just dealing with a piece of the whole picture, and we needed the support of others in order to complete this picture together. On the other side, we built tools to speak a common language, because we recognized that one of the main problems was to be conscious altogether of what were the priorities for investing in energy efficiency and sustainability, and be conscious of the roles, responsibilities that each stakeholder has to take in order to increase the financiability of the renovation projects. In this way, we built a model. We asked the stakeholders to be transparent, to communicate their evaluation tools, to communicate their criteria they use to evaluate projects. We built a pre-screening grid, a real grid, a real Excel sheet where you can write all the relevant information to present the project in front of a bank. And we asked the bank to be transparent and clear. And Of course, with these 2 years of activities from Build Connection until the first year of Build Lab, we collected some experiences in involving stakeholders. First of all, I can say that you have to wisely choose who are the stakeholders that can have a positive impact at first on your platform governance. Someone that you can trust and other stakeholders can trust. They can see that you are building a really relevant and strategic platform. You have to find the front runners who actually can influence also other stakeholders to participate to these actions. And be sure to open the platform to a wider community only when you're able to manage it, because it's incredibly time demanding to manage an online community or even a physical one, even worse. And you have to have the structure, you have to be recognizable, you have to brand your platform in order to be sure that people know who you are, what you are doing, that you are credible, because right now plenty of platforms have been built, and you have to be conscious that there is a lot of competition. You have also to be sure that other people are not doing what you want to do, and looking around, monitoring what's happening around you, trying to figure out if it's the case to build a new platform, or if you can aggregate to the existing ones. And in any case, be inclusive and try to strengthen the cooperation with other platform, other stakeholders. So this is the picture of the stakeholders we involved within the topic-oriented groups. These are quite a lot, considering that we have done 5 workshops and we built something really concrete. All of them are a piece of a puzzle, and we wanted to increase the picture. We want to engage much more stakeholders depending on the evolution of the lab. In fact, we have not stopped yet, and even if the BuildInterest project will end shortly, our aim is to continue as Build Lab and to pass from the single building renovation to a wider picture, to the urban regeneration, because we recognize that it's almost impossible to separate energy efficiency to all the other topics, all the other challenges that the urban development is facing. So we want to increase, we want to deal with different kind of building stocks. We want to widen the scale. We want to integrate social challenges with the financial one. And finally, we want to pass from business plan for building renovation to business strategies for urban development. So trying to figure out what is happening when you are thinking at the neighborhood scale. And this will be done within the framework of this new initiative, which is called New Urban Culture, Nuova Cultura Urbana. So I really thank you. I want to ask you to have a look at the website, which is in Italian, but if you want to send me an email, I can directly link you the report in English that we have done, that are explaining what we did and what we want to do. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Serena. So now we're going to move to the question and answer session. I'll explain again for those who have joined. Please address any questions that you have through the question and answer button. We will be answering in this session any questions that you have. If you want to speak, please raise your hand to the host. We can also promote you and allow you to talk so that you can be heard from all the participants.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, I'm Francesca Marchi from Rena Consulting. First of all, thank you very much for this very interesting webinar. I'm working on a project on as well renovation of existing buildings, and in particular working on business models evaluation for renovation buildings. And also in our cases, we are developing a platform. So first of all, it could be interesting to collaborate together to exchange information in the future, maybe. My question was, are the three financing platform already ready on the website? I have a look and I saw something. And how many stakeholders did you engage?
I can answer for BuildLab. Of course, the platform is online within the website www.buildlab.it. And
Okay.
if you mean that we have an online identity, we are not an online platform. Since we work in a physical environment, we really do working groups together. So we are not online as a platform. We involve so far more than 250 stakeholders directly that are engaging in our activities at the steering committee level, topic-oriented groups, or at the community level. This is for a BuildLab. I don't know if I correctly understood your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
I can add for the other two countries, just like Serena said, also for the Netherlands and for France, there is a difference between an online identity and an online platform. In both cases, it's really an online identity. And for the Netherlands, I think there are currently just over 200 people from the building, or 200 organizations from the building sector registered, with between 40 and 50 organizations with a financial background, from banks to pension institutes to investors, etc. And for France, it's about the same number, with the difference that this is our BuildInterest community is part of Euroquity. And Euroquity is a much larger European matchmaking platform. So there, let's say the boundary between our BuildInterest stakeholders and the let's say the rest of all the European stakeholders is not so distinct, but the number of people that joined just because of our project is around 200 also.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, we have one question in the question and answer session. Hello, are there benefits for the companies who have developed an innovative technologies in the fields of these platforms? Mark, Serena, do you have any observations?
Well, benefits, it depends what do you mean with benefits. We are trying to integrate different kind of innovation in our, let's say, business plans, because we would like to promote really innovative renovations, both financially and technologically. And we saw that innovative technologies enable much more the financiability of the projects than the normal technologies, of course. Right now, we didn't we didn't try to put effectively these pilot projects in the market. It could be a next step, and verify really in the market if these technologies can help the financiability and the success of these projects. Of course, we are really interested in knowing new technologies and including relevant innovative technologies in our network, because we would like to strengthen the cooperation between who is providing technologies, who has the chance to adopt them, promoting renovation projects. Yes, feel free to contact us to explain your technologies, your innovation, and we will try to understand if a cooperation is possible.
Maybe I can add something again for the other two platforms. I think for the Netherlands, it's a bit different because the focus there was really on real estate investment. So there were definitely a lot of benefits for the companies and organizations involved, but their focus was not strictly on developing innovative technologies. So it kind of depends on the background of the question, but I think the platform there was, for example, able to help banks and real estate valuators to work together in developing, let's say, valuation technologies that are better suited for energy efficient buildings. Yesterday we had a webinar on that. For France, there, like I said, this is a platform that's really much more focused on innovative technologies. And again, there I think the benefits are quite large, but it kind of depends on what you mean with benefits. I think a good example is, for example, the sessions that we organized in France, where we helped startup companies or companies developing innovative technologies to get in contact with investors in a more efficient and a more effective way. For example, BPI, our French partner, helped them to in pitching sessions where they could, let's say, hone their presentation and hone their business proposition in such a way that it would fit better with their audience of investors, basically helping them to reach out to investors more effectively. I think, well, that's just an example, but I think the benefits of the platforms are much more in that form.
Thank you, Marco. Did any enterprises from the construction or recycling sector participate to the platform? Was it difficult to engage them? And is their participation important in the first stages of the platform when you did the Build Connect?
Well, no, we didn't involve the recycling sector enterprises. At the very beginning, we were concentrated only on the professionals who were designing the projects, the construction enterprises who were involved in the construction, the execution phase, the ESCOs, but not the recycling sector, even if it's really interesting in a next step, if we think it's in a circular economy scenario. So I strongly think that it's really important to involve all the phases of the construction phases, from the creation, from the innovation in materials and component production until the recycling phase, if we consider the whole life cycle of the building construction. Since we were not dealing with new construction but existing building renovations, we thought that this was not so important at this stage, but certainly could be interesting for the future.
Yeah, I think here I'd like to add that I think one of my last slides was the message that who you want to involve in what stage is really dependent on your local situation, but also on the specific platform that you run. I think in the Dutch case, for example, they were definitely involved, but this is because the starting point for our platform there was an existing platform for the construction sector. The platform was called Duurzaam Gebouwd, which is Dutch for sustainable buildings, basically. So every company involved in sustainable building somehow, either because they're a project developer, because they're a technology developer, or a contractor, etc. They were already involved. This is the group of about 200 companies that I referred to earlier. And in the Netherlands, the specific challenge was actually the other way around. How do you get the financial sector to engage with a group that is already well established and quite large and really focused on buildings? Because by nature, they speak a different language. So there the effort was really to set up, in the beginning, a separate platform focused on the financial sector. Like Serena said in her presentation, it was very wise, I think, there to start small and with a small group of financial institutions. And then after trust has been established and after everybody's really engaged in the dialogue, then we expanded, or our Dutch partner expanded and brought the two groups together. So I think even though in the Netherlands it was the other way around than in your question, I think the approach is quite common. Serena mentioned this. We did the same thing in the Netherlands. Sometimes you really, if you have difficulty engaging another sector, sometimes it's best to just start with a small group of people that do have an ambition or do really want to engage, promote them to like a steering committee, or start with a separate platform and then grow from there. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Marco, Serena. And also, do you know any kind of problems or best practices that you have encountered in terms of pipeline construction, legal barriers, funding models, and policy recommendations?
Well, within our topic-oriented groups, we involved a network of enterprises who were building an interesting model, including in their projects directly professionals, enterprises, ESCOs, finance banks, and small owners association. And that was really interesting to see why these kind of structures that in theory were working, should work really well, actually start at a certain point and their project didn't start. And we saw that one of our main barrier is when we face the so-called condominium assembly, when we start talk with the apartment manager, which seems to be really a crucial stakeholder when we have to deal with the residential building renovation. Because somehow everything stops when the, how do we say, the diplomacy between the apartment manager and building owners and tenants was happening. So this was one of our problem. Try to understand how to include apartment manager in the in our process to increase financiability of the renovations, making them aware of what could be done to reduce the level of uncertainties, both perceived by the banks, by the enterprises, and by the owners. So in these terms, I think that what we recommended was to make a sort of change in the approach, trying to understand at first the main characteristics of the project without going so far and without elaborating a complete project, and trying to verify immediately the feasibility conditions with the owners and with the apartment managers before to start a long time and money-consuming process. Of course, this is counterparted by what a public administration can do, a public authority can do, and we addressed this part, writing some guidelines for the regional authority, providing some key parameters for the elaboration of guarantee tools at the regional level that could enhance the project design, the presentation of projects of high quality. So making a higher level, higher targets of projects, but selecting and financing only those that cannot have a chance in the market. So it could be maybe too long to explain right now what are all the policies, but of course you can have a look at our report where we have write it down in a more detailed way.
Thank you, Serena. We have one participant who is also taking part of a project that will create an online platform for deep renovation in residential buildings in the Mediterranean area. The participant is wondering why did we choose to create different platforms in the different countries?
Yeah, I guess I'll take that one. Well, I think what really helped was the fact that we have 3 platforms in 3 different countries, but also important, I don't think this has come up earlier, the platforms were run by very different organizations. You've already heard a lot about Aster. But in the Netherlands, the organization starting or running the platform was really a communications and network company, basically, that already ran an existing platform, had an excellent network in the building sector, and well, like I just said, expanded into the financial sector. So they were really well established, could make, well, let's say quick steps ahead in organizing all the required workshops, etc. And in France, the organization running the platform was BPI, which is a huge national bank. So they are in a completely different position than, for example, Aster or Duurzaam Gebouwd, which is, I think each have their advantages and disadvantages. For example, BPI compared to Duurzaam Gebouwd, BPI is an established institution, so has everything they say carries more political weight, so they have to be a bit more, well, political and a bit more careful in the things they do. But once they move forward, the potential impact is huge. On the other hand, Duurzaam Gebouwd is quite a small company, so it's much more able to move freely in the beginning of the project, but they really need to reach their impact by getting others to move. And I think what the fact that we had those 3 different approaches in one project, and of course, let's say the different countries with the different market contexts, has really allowed us to learn more from each other than if it would have been just one project. I think now we had the chance to, even though the context was different, to see how the other platforms were working and learn lessons from the other platforms. I hope that's an answer.
Thank you, Marco. We have a couple of minutes left for questions and answers. Maybe any last comments, if you have. Please address them now. Okay, thank you very much to Serena and to Marco and to anyone who participated. This last slide concludes the run of this webinar. Thank you a lot for joining us. You can see the main contacts and the main websites of the BuildInterest project, where you can refer to this recording and to the presentation slides, which will be shared after the end of the webinar.
Just to add my thanks as well. Good to see the audience today, and thank you, Eva, very much for organizing and hosting it. And Thank you, Serena, as well for the presentation. Very nice.
Thank you too, and I hope that all the attendees will have the chance to get in contact directly with us so we can go a little bit further in our mutual understanding, mutual knowledge and